The 1176 and the LA2A are probably the most ubiquitous, well-known studio compressors. And there's other famous compressors like the Distressor and the Neve diode bridge compressors and the Fairchild and a bunch of other compressors that are much loved or much coveted or both. But there is one compressor used on countless records that is less talked about, highly underrated, and much more affordable than its other studio counterparts. That compressor is the DBX 160x. And we're not talking about the vintage 160. That thing costs a fortune. But the 160X is the more modern VCA version of that same compressor. The 160X are a great sounding compressor that can be used on a lot of applications, and you can pick them up for around $300 or so. So if you're looking for your first studio quality outboard compressor, this is maybe one for you. I have a bunch of them here just behind me, and I use them all the time, particularly on things like kick and snare. And they're actually famously used on hip hop records and a bunch of other applications by people like Dave Pensato and Jason Joshua and all of those big name producers. And they're kind of a little bit of a well-kept secret. The compressors themselves are actually quite simple. There's only a threshold control, a ratio control, and then a makeup gain control with one switch to adjust the knee of the compression. And if you're wondering what the big deal is about these compressors, they are known for adding just a lot of snappiness and accentuating the beginning transient of whatever sound source you put through them. So, for instance, if you want a kick or a snare to have more attack, or a guitar maybe to have a bit more bite to it and pick up the picking of the guitar, this compressor is actually perfect for that exact case scenario. If you go back to one of my previous videos, and I'll put a link down below, where we talked about compressors and how when talking about compressors, we need to think of them as just different tools for different jobs. This compressor is for adding snap and attack and bite and transient to a sound source. Let's dive into a session and I'll show you exactly how these compressors sound and how they can be used and what they're good for. So we're going to jump into a Cubase session that I'm working on at the moment. It's with an artist called Rehab Doll. I've worked on a couple of their tracks before, and I captured a live recording of the band, and we're currently mixing those tracks. So currently, I'll play the track. And you can hear in the kick drum, for instance, there's quite a lot of spill. And it's a live recording, so there's going to be bass amps spilling into the kick drum and whatever. But we can use these tools to really get a pumping kick drum. And it just takes a little bit of finessing, a little bit of work, and using the right tool for the right job. So I've got my kick in here. And what I'm going to do is create a new track. And we're going to call this the kick return. And so for this kick return, what I'm going to do is send my kick out. I'm going to turn off this processing here. And now I've got my EQ here. I've got a bit of EQ going on before my gate there. And I'm going to leave that on. This is typically what I would do. I would clean up some stuff before the gate. If you have a listen, just raw. So I've just cleaned up a tiny little bit. Then I'm going to put a gate on. And what you can see I've used here is an expander, not just a gate, because I want the sound to still be rounded. I don't want to lose any of the attack. I don't want to lose any of the bloom of the bottom end either, because if you overgate things, you can lose that. So that's what I've done there. I'm going to send that cleaned up, slightly cleaned up signal into my DBX compressor. And then I'm going to send my signal into my Neves. And then what I'm going to do is take this stereo output and send it out of line out 3. So now it's going out of the outputs of my interface. And then hopefully and now we're seeing it down here. right here. So we've got our compressors down here. You can see my vocal was going through number 1 here just because why not? And then I've got my kick coming through channel 2. And what we can do with this compressor is drive in quite a bit of our threshold here. And if I bypass the compressor, you'll notice that it loses some of its front end and its attack. Have a listen.
Leave me by the corner. Take me.
And then now I've got a bit more attack on that. What I will do is send it typically into my Neve EQ over here as well. And I'm going to dial that in. And then I've got my Neve EQs over here. So I'm going to very quickly
Bring on your soul disease. Bring me to your cure, please. Bring me to your sickness.
So you can hear there how much the DBX is helping push the front end of that kick drum through the mix. So then all I have to do is track that in. Cool. And then what you can do is the same thing again, but send your kick crush to something like the DBX, which is what I've done here. So if we go over to kick crush in the mix, and I'll output the line out of the kick crush back through the DBX. Now I've got the kick return here just playing on its own. That's the kick return soloed. And that's the kick bus there. And we can slam that, and I've actually got it in negative ratio right now, and it adds crazy front end to the attack there. And have a listen here.
The corner. Take me back home. Leave me on my machine parts. I'm ready to rebuild. Bring on your soul disease. Bring me to your cure, please. Bring me to your sickness. Bring me to your soul disease.
Cool. And so you can hear that once you put the 160s on, say, the actual instrument itself, and then run it again through kick return, you're going to get this like huge kick sound and really attacky, really snappy front end. And so in the 90s, there was that big snappy kind of snare and kick sound, and they typically could use an 1176, or they'd use, if they didn't have enough 1176s, a DBX 160 to get that front end snap. It's kind of a two-stage process to make that happen and get that attack. And right now it's a little bit, it needs probably a little bit more low end to it, which we can adjust on the Neve EQ over here. And I'm going to do that right now, and then just tweak it. And then I'm going to record the kick crush in as well.
Maybe I'm crazy. I think your sickness is leave me today. I'm out of time.
And now the kick drum's done. What we'll do is I'll do the same thing for the snare. So I'm very quickly just going to run this through the same kind of process.
Bring on your soul disease. Bring me to your cure, please. Bring me to your.
And all I've got right now is actually, I'll flick over. I'm actually running through the previous kick drum settings and it's slapping so hard. So that's without the Neve EQ. You can really hear there how much the DBX is bringing out the snare. Then I'm going to add some snare EQ.
Bring on your soul disease. Bring me to your cure, please. Bring me to your sickness needs. Leave me to die of a death. Leave me.
So that's with the stuff on. You can hear how much that DBX is adding. That's with EQ on, no DBX. It just really brings out that snare in a really nice way, the DBX 160x. So let's print it back in. Cool, so there's our snare. Now what I'm going to do is do the same as what I did with the kick. I'm going to send it into its own crush and go through the same process again into the DBX. And then we'll be almost there. Out to the line out. And then we'll slam it. And I'm just going to jump on my EQ and adjust that as well. Lovely. Now we've got that snare crush really snapping in the mix. All right, let's go again. There we go. And now we've got these nice snappy, retract, analog, snappy snares.
Leave me by the corner. Take me back home. Leave me on my machine. Please bring me to your signities. Leave me to die out of time.
Awesome. So, if you wanted to know what a DBX 160x sounded like and wanted to get a nice, versatile, or kind of versatile, studio compressor that can be used on at least things like kick snare, guitars. I use it on vocals sometimes too. I've got it on my vocals right now, and it sounds awesome. I love it for kick and snare and drums and anything that needs a bit more bite or attack. It's a perfect tool for that job, and it just kicks ass. So if you haven't heard of that compressor, definitely go and look for them online. I could probably use one more as well. I'd love to have 2 pairs. I currently have 3 of them. I would definitely use another one on snare bottom or something like that, or kick out. But yeah, super rad sounding piece of gear. Thanks for stopping by. If you've got any questions about this compressor or any gear that I talk about on this channel, hit me up in the comment section down below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mitch from the DIYRecordingstudio.com. I'll catch you soon.